We are back now with our special coverage of the Supreme Court arguments on whether former President Trump should be removed from the Colorado ballot. As you could probably expect, Donald Trump is firing back at the assertion his name should not be on the ballot. The former president speaking a short time ago at his Mar-a-Lago club in Florida.
Well, I'm a believer in our country, and I'm a believer in the Supreme Court. I listened today, and I thought our arguments were very, very strong. Can you take the person that's leading everywhere and say, hey, we're not going to let you run? You know, I think that's pretty tough to do, but I'm leaving it up to the Supreme Court.
Joining us now, NBC's Garrett Haake in Washington and NBC's Vaughn Hilliard, who's in Las Vegas. They both cover the Trump campaign, and we'll talk to you, Vaughn, in just a moment. Of course, there's a caucus happening there in Nevada today. Donald Trump's hoping to walk away with all the delegates there. But, Garrett, we just heard Trump say he's leaving it up to the Supreme Court. What else are we hearing from the Trump campaign about this issue before the Supreme Court today?
Well, and I think you can think of those comments from Donald Trump there as a little bit of working the referees here. He and his legal advisors were very pleased with how things went today in the Supreme Court. I talked to a couple of the folks who advised him on legal matters who think this will be an 8-1 or 9-0 decision in his favor. And they know that his attorneys are going to be back in front of the Supreme Court potentially very soon on the immunity case. And so you have here a politician who's never been shy about criticizing judges or courts when he thinks they are doing wrongly by him. He did it even in this same press conference talking about another case, but here with nothing but positive things to say about the Supreme Court, which in many ways holds his political future in his hands. At the same time, Trump also kind of linked this case with all the others against him, arguing that these are all election interference. He tries to make the case that these are all brought by the Biden Justice Department or being used by Democrats to defeat him. We know that's not true in this case based on the nature of how this case bubbled up through Colorado. And finally, within minutes of his remarks after this hearing was over, his campaign was sending fundraising appeals focused on the fact that you have this effort to get him removed from the ballot, urging people to send their hard-earned cash to the Trump campaign to allow him to keep campaigning. Anna?
And Vaughn Hilliard, you're in Las Vegas because there's a caucus there today. There are, I think, 26 delegates to be awarded. None were being awarded with the primary 2 days ago. So Donald Trump is positioned. You don't have Nikki Haley on that ballot today. He's positioned to take away the majority of those delegates, if not all of those delegates, and that also gives him more strength, at least in the delegate math.
Right, absolutely. And if, in fact, the Supreme Court rejects the Colorado Supreme Court's decision, of course, Donald Trump will continue to appear on the ballots across the country. After today, still only 3.8% of the delegates nationally will have been allocated after these first 3 voting states. But I think it's important what we heard from Donald Trump down in Mar-a-Lago after the Supreme Court's oral arguments today, because it goes beyond just the actual question of whether he can appear on the ballot or not. But it also hits at the heart of what a future Donald Trump presidency in the White House come 2025 could look like. What you heard from his remarks there at Mar-a-Lago was one, when he talked about the insurrection, he said even if it was an insurrection, he placed the blame on Nancy Pelosi. Again, of course, which is a flat-out lie. Nancy Pelosi, there is no evidence that she had any involvement in any of the security measures taken on the day of the January 6th attack. But for Donald Trump, it is about a justification of his actions leading up to that day and on that day. There has been no acknowledgement of any wrongdoing. Instead, he has justified his responses in those hours after. And when we talk about the appeals court in their ruling this week that he does not have did not have presidential immunity, Donald Trump was asked an important question by our colleague Dasha Burns, who was down there at Mar-a-Lago, and that was the extent to which a president is bound constitutionally from any actions that he or she chooses to take from the Oval Office. And his answer was very striking. He said that a president should be allowed to do whatever he or she sees fit, and even included, quote, he can do really bad things for our country. So on one hand, Donald Trump is justifying his actions on the January 6th, the day of the January 6th, 2021 attack, while also making the case that future actions, whatever they may be justified. Today, I think these oral arguments are important outside of just the past, but also potentially what a Donald Trump presidency could look like in the future.